Hey guys, it's Kevin. It's me, another installment of Own It, Never Falking, Seen It. So, as you guys know, the big movie coming out this week is, of course, The Predator. So, I figured for that reason alone, I haven't seen any of the Predator films. I will review all three of them before I do see that one, starting off with the 1987 classic known as simply Predator. And what Predator is essentially about is basically we center on this soldier named Dutch, and he is recruited basically to track down and rescue this group of politicians that are trapped in Guatemala. And when he gets there, he starts to realize that there's something very strange going on. There are all these bodies piling up, and he starts to realize that something inhumane may possibly be in the woods with them and may even possibly be tracking them, and that's really all I'm going to say. So Predator overall, I was very curious about this film. I've heard really great things about it, especially, leading up to watching this film, I heard amazing things about it. I've heard it's held up even better than it did in the 80s, and I really didn't know how it was really going to turn out. You know, I'm a huge fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, but I don't know too much about the Predator films at all. And I have to say, re-watching it for the first time, this film still holds up extremely well. Predator is not only a really great action movie, but a really great movie overall that is surprisingly way more intelligent than I really expected it to be. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And I'll just say right now, the cast here is phenomenal. Everyone here does a fantastic job, but easily the star of this film is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, obviously, he's on every poster. You know, most people know this film as the Schwarzenegger Predator, and rightfully so, because he does a phenomenal job in this film. What I really love about the character of Dutch is that he is someone who is not always on top of things. Like, he thinks he knows what's going on at first, but as the film goes on, he starts to realize more about this Predator and how deadly of a beast it really is. And I really loved getting into who he really was, how he starts to realize, you know, what he really is up against. And I think he just did an incredible job in this film, particularly in the climax of this movie. I think is truly some of his best work ever. I think he just completely nailed it in this role. I really did love him here a lot, and it truly does show why he is one of the biggest badasses out here. But this film also does show that he also really is a fantastic actor when you give him really good material to work with, and I thought he really was great here. And everyone else in the film also does do a very good job. Carl Weathers is very good as the CIA operative, Dylan, who him and Dutch do have this sort of bond going on, which I really enjoyed. Elpidia Carrillo is very good as the character of Anna. She's someone who, she gives them a lot of clues as to who the Beast really is. You realize she may have had an encounter with him. And a lot of the other characters, you know, while they're not really delved into a lot, they all really do stick out. Bill Duke, Richard Chaves, and of course Shane Black, who, you know, basically years later, of course, is making the next Predator film. I thought was honestly really great here. He does kind of serve as like the comic relief here, and he did do a very good job overall. And Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator also is fantastic. Really, everyone here did a very good job, but the acting is really the least remarkable thing about this film, and that's saying a lot because the acting really here is incredible. What really impresses me here, though, is the directing, which is fantastic. John McTiernan, this is actually the first film I've seen from him. I know, shocking. I haven't seen Die Hard, I haven't seen Hunt for Red October, but after this film, I have a much bigger urge to do so, because I truly think he did a phenomenal job, not only crafting a sense of suspense, but also doing a very good job at being very patient. He doesn't tell you everything that's going on at first. In fact, the film starts off, and you think it's simply just a simple rescue mission, and that's something I really did love about his directing. It really does intensify more, increases more as the film really does go on, and I think he just did a very good job of perpetuating that sense of fear, perpetuating that sense of sort of hopelessness, because you do start to get the sense that maybe they can't possibly beat the Predator, and I think he just did a very good job with that throughout the film. I really loved his directing here. It feels very real and in the moment, and I thought he was just such a fantastic job. I can see why he has been as acclaimed of a director as he's been over the years, and like I said, I definitely do want to see Die Hard a lot more now after watching this film, and the writing writing here as well, I think is fantastic. What I really love about this movie, like I said, is how intelligent it really is. It's not just a really great action film, because there are really good action scenes in there, but the film does a very good job of establishing who the Predator really was, especially because it puts you into the situation of, if you were like Dutch and you were told that what you're doing is simply just a rescue mission, you're getting these people out of Guatemala, you're getting them on a plane, and you're getting them to that location, and that's really all you need to do. But Dutch seems to realize that there is much more at play, and I really love the way we get into who the Predator really is, and, you know, what they're really up against, and how the Predator really can sense them, and things like that. And the way that Dutch starts to realize that, that's something that I really did love, when he starts to realize the Predator's strengths, the Predator's weaknesses. All of that stuff is incredibly interesting, and I really love that about the film. I think they did a very good job with that overall, and that's something that I loved a lot about this movie, is getting into, you know, what's really going on with the Predator and how can we really stop the Predator. It's a very interesting conflict, and the film really does tackle it head on, and I think they did a very good job with that overall. But the other thing the film does very well is it really, like I said, does take its time with this narrative. You know, very early on, we start to realize that all these bodies are piling up, and that, you know, it seems like people are getting killed left and right, and people keep making the worst decisions possible, and Dutch, you know, more people get killed, the more Dutch starts to realize what he's truly up against, and what the real, you know, how the Predator can really sense them and things like that. And the Predator, may I mention, is almost always on top of things. I mean, we see constantly throughout this film, the Predator is watching them and seeing their every step and seeing their every move, and that in itself is just terrifying to think about. Knowing that there's this beast watching you, and you can't really explain it, and you don't really know what it is, that in it is terrifying. And knowing that it's always one step ahead of you, and it's always watching your every move, I think is honestly pretty chilling to think about, and the film does a very good job with showing us that, and also not really telling us a lot about the Predator. I think the film is actually heightened by the fact that even at the end of this film, we still don't know a lot about the Predator, because it makes it that much more terrifying. It gives you the sense of, it truly is this beast that, sure, is kind of, you know, relatively, its, you know, origins and things like that are relatively unknown, but it's truly it's clearly much more advanced than a human being, and that's something that I really did love getting into. I think the writing was very good here, and a lot of people can say, oh, the film doesn't really have character, and I would actually disagree. I think the film does a good job of showing the bond between Schwarzenegger and Weathers very early on in the film. It's through a little bit of dialogue, but you do get the sense of who they were. Schwarzenegger is this soldier, and he's clearly, you know, kind of been out of the game for a while, and he's now kind of getting back into it, and him and Weathers have some sort of bond going on, and I think they did a very good job with establishing that. I will say that I do think some of the side characters don't really stick out all that much, but the film's not about them, so it's not really that much of an issue. It's really just more of a nitpick, but the film isn't really about them. It's not about these characters. It's not about who these characters are. It's about how they deal with this situation, and how they really start to figure out what they're up against, and how, you know, Arnold starts to realize the problems that they've had, and how he really can try to fix that, and actually see if he can possibly be the one to go up against the beast, and they did a very good job with that overall. I really love the writing in this film a lot. Like I said, it's way more intelligent than I really could have expected, and there were so many points where I was expecting it to get really cheesy, and it actually doesn't go there. It stays pretty grounded in reality throughout the majority of it, and I do think they did a pretty good job with that overall. In terms of cinematography, though, this film still holds up extremely well. I mean, just the thermal vision in general, seeing the Predator watch them, and knowing that this is the Predator, I think is terrifying, and it still holds up really well. I think even better than it did in the 1980s. I really love seeing the Predator just watch them through this thermal vision camera, and how, like I said, it knows their every move and things like that. And the look of the Predator, when we eventually unveil this beast, it actually does look pretty practical. If this is really what we as humans were up against, I think it's a pretty successful, I think it's a pretty natural look, and I really did love the look of the Predator and the look of the woods. Just the cinematography overall is so good here. It doesn't really try to gloss over anything. It's very ballsy in that sense, and I really love the cinematography to this film. The score as well, very suspenseful, very adventurous, and I really love the score a lot. I think it was very well done. And the editing, I will admit the film did take just a little bit of a while to get into for me personally. But once we eventually realized what they're up against and what's actually at play, I was pretty much in it for the long haul, and the film really did get better and better as it went on, with a climax that I think is truly epic. I love everything about the climax. I'm not going to spoil what really does end up happening for those who haven't seen it, but the way that, Schwarzenegger does start to basically try to get on the same side as the Predator and basically try to make himself just as powerful, I think it's genius. And it's absolutely brilliant the way he lays out this final plan. I love the way it was done, and I think it still holds up even more so all these years later. It's an ending that, yes, it is a bit ambiguous, but the way the film does wrap up, I think it's the perfect way to really end this film. Like I said, Predator is less of a film of just man taking down this beast and more of getting into what we really do when the person that is hunting us, our origins are relatively unknown and we don't really know anything there is about them. We don't know their every sense. We don't know who they are. We don't even know what they are or who they've come from. We don't know any of that stuff, and I think it makes it all the more terrifying for that reason. Predator is a classic, guys. It's everything that you really want in a really great action film that also is very intelligent. It has a standout performance from Arnold Schwarzenegger. It has some truly stunning cinematography and a fantastic score overall, but also, like I said, it has a lot of really great stuff, a lot of really great stuff writing-wise as well. Sure, it's not overly concerned on characters, but that's not really what the film is about. It's not about the characters. It's about how they deal with the situation. They handle that very well overall. It's a film that I am very happy that I finally saw, and I am definitely going to give Predator overall an A. But overall, guys, in my review of the original Predator, let me know what you guys saw this film overall, after your thoughts, and I will be reviewing Predator 2 and Predators very soon. Stay tuned for my review of both of those. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.